We were at Spa, now we're back at Brands Hatch. That's most confusing. Hello folks, welcome to another Motorsport Detective. I'm Alex Burnham. This episode's mystery comes from an 8mm cine film. I don't know what it's on it, but it says quite clearly motor racing. So let's get this digitised and then we'll see what we've got. Here we go then. And straight away, looks to me like Brands Hatch. I'm going to guess from the cars and everything, maybe in the 1960s. Sports cars on the grid of Brands Hatch, I think. Now these sports cars aren't 60s like I first thought. This is early 70s we're looking. They seem to be Ferraris. Now hang on. That's not Brands Hatch. That is the famous Eau Rouge corner at Spa. No, we're back. We were at Spa, now we're back at Brands Hatch. That's most confusing. Alright, okay, so Brands Hatch motor racing once more. Lots of interesting cars in there, Porsches. Hang on, we're back in Spa, I think. Now early 70s, I think we're out on the far side of the old Spa track somewhere. And we're back at Brands Hatch again. Now something's very strange here. There seems to be a mixture of racers, meetings, different circuits even, all put onto one bit of film. Now you might not be able to make this out, but right there is the problem. Somebody has taken various films and has spliced them together. They've sort of glued different bits of racers that they've taken film of into one film. So it seems this film's been a bit mixed up, and I can't really tell what's going on until I've separated it down. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to mark each scene, hopefully with which circuit it's from. I can then rearrange all that and get the different tracks in order. Alright, so what I've done is I've edited up that cine film that we've digitised into different circuits. Now I think I can locate the spot where our cameraman was standing for all of this footage. By using maps, period photographs and that sort of thing, I think we can find out where he was standing when those races took place. I'm going to start with Brands Hatch because I've already got a good knowledge of its layout. So here the opening shot is a long shot. Now this is taken from almost the other side of the circuit. Now today it has a different name to what it had back in the 70s. It's known today as Cooper Straight, but back in the 1970s this was known as Bottom Straight. Again, from that same vantage point we can see the cars going down Paddock Hill Bend, and then in front of us on that bottom straight, our cameraman has now moved vantage point from that bottom straight. He's now standing up here on what back then was known as Kidney Bend. He's worked his way inside the circuit and is shooting as the cars come around that long left-hander. On the modern circuit, this corner is known as Surtees, and it links the shorter Indy track to the bigger Grand Prix loop. Cars going underneath the footbridge. This is the cars heading up the slight rise towards this section, Pilgrim's Drop. Now we're around at Druid's Hairpin. You can see the cars that come up from Paddock Hill Bend, up the rise round Druid's Hairpin, and then they're dropping back down again towards that bottom bend once more. So Brands Hatch was relatively simple. I've been able to find all the little clips from that mixed up film, put them in some sort of order, and we can work out exactly where the cameraman was standing to shoot that footage. Now Spa-Francorchamps is going to be a much bigger task, partially because it's a much bigger circuit. Now to start with, we're on the grid for Spa-Francorchamps. Now originally I thought this might have been Brands Hatch's grid, but after having done a bit of research and looking at photos of the grid in the 1970s at Spa, I realised that it wasn't Brands Hatch at all. So this is what gave it away. That drop from the grid down to Eau Rouge is such an iconic piece of the racetrack that it was easy to identify. It's very different to how the circuit is in modern day. Here in this footage you can see the bridge under which the river that gives the corner its name flows. All of that is now changed. There's runoff areas, safety barriers, and a whole variety of things that just weren't there back in the 70s. Probably should be mentioned at this point that the Spa of 1970s is very different to the Spa of today. Up here where the start-finish line is, that's roughly the same as the modern circuit. For comparison purposes, here you can see that the modern day Grand Prix circuit only uses one little corner of the entire 1970s loop. So this footage is shot from the Radillon corner, looking down at the cars coming down the start-finish straight, through Eau Rouge and back up the hill. Now we're out onto the road sections of the track. Here we see cars coming down short straight stretch of track before heading into that left-hand bend. But in fact the footage is a bit deceiving. It's possible to make out just in the distance beyond some buildings that the track's actually going round a right-hander before this sort of straight section and then into that harder left. This was very hard to place on the map of Spa-Francorchamps because it looks in the footage like a very straight section. However, on the Google Earth images, we can see it's not so much of a straight section. Here we can see we have this relatively long sweeping right-hand bend around the small village of Bournonville. And as it comes around, it then heads into that left-hand bend. Doing a street view from where I think the footage was shot doesn't really help because the track has changed quite a lot over time. You can just make out in the distance that the track is coming from a right-hand bend curving down towards us. This means this piece of footage is down here where it's marked as Malmedy. It looks perhaps a bit more pronounced on that footage, that fast left-right-hand section. But from above we can see their sort of sweeping curves. For this slightly plunging right-hander with the flags, our cameraman has moved on a small way around the circuit to get a different vantage point. Whereas previously our cameraman had been filming up from this point, looking towards the cars coming towards them, he has now moved down into this area where he could see the cars plunging away down past those flags. If we place our Google Earth images here on this sort of lay-by, we are actually in what I think is the same area. No idea what's going on in this red estate car, but we'll ignore that for now and look at the shape of the track. As the cameraman pans around to follow a car, we can see that even the lay-by that we're standing in back then was a piece of the road. Now we can see from this footage that cars are doing a slight left-right jink just before they get to this house. So again, on Google Earth, we'll see whether we can find out whereabouts this is. Now on this not very precise map, we can see that down here at Master there is a left-right jink. Now if we can go to Google Earth, we'll zoom in on the small village of Master, and there we have our road making its left-right jink. Again, let's use Street View to see what that looks like from the ground level. And instantly we've found our building. Now it's changed slightly over the years. It's been renovated and the surrounding area has been changed, but it's pretty clearly the same building. Same window structures, the same odd looking roof and similar cladding, which means I'm certain this is where that was shot from. So that was all the stuff I could definitely identify as being from Spa. However, there were several things that rather confused me. This piece of footage I originally thought was part of the Spa track as well. What got me was that in the background you can see the cars as they return. Now the only place in Spa where this sort of vantage point would have been possible was right up at the top near the La Source hairpin. Possibly if our cameraman had been stood here, you'd been able to oversee cars going both right to left in front of him and then left to right on a further stretch of track. However, this really wasn't lining up because after the La Source hairpin, the track plunges away down quite steeply towards Eau Rouge again. On our footage, however, we can clearly see this car travelling on a relatively straight piece of track. We're then into a series of turns that I just assumed were out in the countryside of Belgium around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But no matter what I did, I just couldn't place any of these corners, which means there's a third circuit in this film that I have no idea what it is. So a brilliant mystery, an 8mm film which said motor racing that turned out to be at least 3 different circuits all mixed in together. Now we've been able to unravel it and identify 2 of those 3. So if you'd like to find out more about what the events were from Brands Hatch and Spa, or if you'd like to join me as we try and discover what that mystery circuit is, please do subscribe to my channel and come back for the next episodes of the Motorsport Detective, where we'll be delving further into our mystery footage.